Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive.
Excited to be here.
You guys know how this works. You give us the fascinating reads, we get our hands dirty, pull out the good stuff, and today we are tackling Yuval Noah Harari's Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind.
Ambitious. I like it.
Right. This book, it takes us on this wild ride through, well, the entirety of human history. We're talking big questions here, like what sets us apart, us humans, from every other species on the planet? How'd we go from small bands of hunter-gatherers to building these massive empires, these global systems? And maybe, just maybe, we'll uncover some clues about where we might be headed. What do you think?
Sounds like a plan. Let's
Yeah.
dive in.
Okay, so Harari, he starts off with a bang, the cognitive revolution. Around 70,000 years ago, something pretty incredible happens to Homo sapiens. Something that puts us on this totally different trajectory than, say, our Neanderthal cousins. And it wasn't about, like, brute strength or even bigger brains. It's something much more interesting, wouldn't you say?
Definitely. This is where we see the emergence of what we might call imagined realities.
Imagined reality.
Yeah, it's like what truly sets Homo sapiens apart is this amazing ability not just to think differently, but to create and share beliefs in things that don't physically exist.
Okay, I think I'm following.
It's things like, think about it, gods, nations, money, even corporations.
Whoa, I see what you mean. These things only hold power because we all agree that they do.
Right. A mountain is a mountain. You can see it, touch it. But these imagined realities, these are the concepts, the stories that we've collectively agreed to believe in, even though we can't physically touch them like a tree or a rock. And that's the foundation of all large-scale human cooperation.
It's like this scene in the book, the one where he talks about that burial site they found in Sungir, Russia.
Oh, yeah, with a...
Yeah, they found these two skeletons, a boy and a girl, buried head to head. And get this, they're adorned with thousands upon thousands of ivory beads. I mean, can you imagine the time and effort to make those beads 30,000 years ago?
It's incredible to think about.
It really is. Makes you wonder, what did such an elaborate burial mean to these people? Did they believe in an afterlife?
Possibly?
Was it a hierarchical society? You know, like those mammoth hunting tribes Harari talks about, where maybe these children held a high status?
It's tempting to jump to those conclusions, right? To see reflections of our own beliefs in these ancient practices.
So are you saying we're kind of imposing our own worldview on the past?
We have to be careful about that. Archaeology is as much about what we bring to the table, our own assumptions, as it is about the things we dig up.
Like a Rorschach test, we see what we want to see.
Exactly. We might look at those beads and immediately think status symbols because that's how we understand hierarchy today.
Yeah.
But for those ancient people, their meaning could have been totally different. It's a good reminder to approach these discoveries with a bit of humility. We can never truly step into the minds of those who came before us.
It's almost like we're stuck looking through our own lens, even when we're trying to understand the past.
Yeah, it's a humbling thought, isn't
It
it?
really is.
And that actually leads us to another fascinating point that Harari makes about these imagined realities.
Okay.
Because they underpin, well, pretty much everything we do as a species.
Right.
The ability to change these shared narratives, to shift those beliefs, it's incredibly powerful.
It's like hitting the reset button on a whole civilization, right? Moving from one set of beliefs to a totally different set.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Think about it this way. Take the Code of Hammurabi, one of the earliest written law codes we have, and put it side by side with, say, the American Declaration of Independence.
Okay.
You get these two documents, thousands of years apart, both claiming to lay out these universal, eternal principles of justice.
Right, but I can already tell they don't exactly see eye to eye.
And that's the point.
Yeah.
What they land on is completely different.
So break it down for me. What makes them so different?
Hammurabi's code, it's all about maintaining this very strict social hierarchy. You know, it's famous for an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth.
Yeah, everyone's heard that one.
But the punishments, they change drastically depending on your social status.
Like how?
So let's say you're a commoner and you accidentally injure another commoner. You might be able to get away with just paying a fine,
Makes sense?
but injure someone of a higher rank, big trouble.
Oh, I see. So it's not really about fairness. It's about protecting the social order.
Exactly. Now, fast forward a few thousand years to the Declaration of Independence, and they're singing a completely different tune. It's all about how all men are created equal.
Right. All men are created equal, at least in theory.
In theory, exactly.
So which one is right?
See, that's the thing. Neither one is inherently true in like a scientific sense.
Okay.
They're both imagined orders, Just stories we tell ourselves about how society should work.
So we're back to these shared stories shaping our behavior in all these subtle ways, even if we don't realize it.
Exactly.
Huh.
And what's fascinating is how these stories, these imagined orders, can be both a source of great unity and the catalyst for, well, tremendous conflict throughout history.
Okay, so how do we go from these small, scattered groups of humans to these huge, sprawling empires?
Right.
If these shared myths are so fluid, so changeable, how did we end up with these larger, more complex societies over time?
It's a question that has puzzled historians for centuries. But here's the thing. If you look closely at history, there does seem to be this overarching trend towards unification. Fewer, but larger and more interconnected cultures.
Interesting.
And Harari identifies three main drivers of this process:
Okay, hit me.
empires, money, and maybe surprisingly, religion.
Okay, so empires, that one seems pretty straightforward, right? Conquering and unifying different groups by force.
Right. Not always pretty, but definitely effective.
But then there's this whole thing about money. Harari calls it, and I love this, the most efficient system of mutual trust ever devised.
Powerful stuff, right?
It really is. Even more trustworthy than like bartering in a small community. That feels more personal.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But what's incredible about money is that it allows us to trust complete strangers.
Right.
Not because we know them, not because they're part of our tribe or family.
But because we all believe in this system,
Exactly. That shared belief, that's the magic of money.
it's like these little pieces of paper only work because we've all agreed they have value.
Precisely. And that trust, it's not just economic, it's political, it's social, all rolled into one.
Wow. Okay. But religion as a unifying force, I'm not sure I'm there yet. Because, I mean, hasn't religion also caused a lot of conflict and division throughout history?
Oh, absolutely. That's an important point. But what Harari argues is that not all religions are created equal,
Hmm.
at least when it comes to their ability to unify large groups of people.
Okay, so money, this shared story that oils the machinery of these vast, complex societies. And now you're saying religion can play a similar role, bringing people together under a shared belief system.
Exactly. Think about the characteristics of those religions that have spread far and wide. They often claim to be universal, meaning their truths apply to everyone, regardless of where they're from or what they do. And they tend to have that missionary zeal, that drive to spread their beliefs to every corner of the world.
So it's not just believing in a higher power, it's about those specific qualities that help to build larger, more cohesive societies.
Precisely. And that brings us back to that fundamental question we touched on earlier.
Mm.
Progress, all this advancement, does it actually make us happier?
Right, because we've gone from the cognitive revolution to the rise of empires, the power of money and religion. It's been quite a ride through history. But has any of it actually led to a better life for the average person?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And, it's a bit surprising how often that question gets sidelined. Historians tend to focus on all these other aspects of the past: wars, revolutions, inventions, political movements. We have all this data on how civilizations lived, but not so much on how they felt.
So what's the point of studying history if not to understand what truly matters? What makes us happy?
That's a great question. And it's not that history can't shed light on these things, it's that we often don't ask it to. Remember, history isn't about predicting the future, it's about gaining perspective.
What do you mean by that?
It's easy to look around at the world with all its complexities and anxieties and think, well, this is just how it is. But history shows us that's not true. There have been so many different ways of organizing ourselves, so many different values and beliefs that have held sway at different points in time.
It's like we get stuck in our own little bubble of the present, but history is this huge panorama of other possibilities.
Exactly. And one of the most thought-provoking ideas that Harari puts forward is that history doesn't necessarily favor human well-being. Just because a culture is successful or technologically advanced doesn't mean it's the best environment for individual happiness.
It's almost like, as a species, we're really good at achieving things, building things, but not necessarily at being happy while we do it.
That's a really interesting way to put it, and it brings us to, I think, the crux of Harari's argument. If we're not careful, the very abilities that have allowed us to thrive as a species, our capacity for cooperation, our ability to believe in shared myths, could also lead to our downfall.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of fascinating ground today. From the dawn of imagined realities to the rise and fall of empires, the unifying power of money and religion, and even this profound question of whether progress really equates to happiness. So much to think about. What stands out to you from all of this?
What I find truly mind-boggling is this idea that our species' unique journey has been shaped by our ability to believe in stories and things that don't exist outside of our collective imagination. From the earliest myths about gods and spirits to the complex narratives we've built around nations and corporations is what makes us both incredibly powerful and potentially very dangerous.
It's like we're holding this incredible power, the ability to reshape the world with our beliefs. But the big question is, will we use it wisely?
Exactly. As we stand on the cusp of this new era, shaped by technology, with the potential to even alter our own biology, will we create a world where everyone can flourish? Or will it be another chapter in this long, complicated relationship between progress and well-being?
That is a great question and a great place to leave it for our listeners to ponder. If you want to grapple with these big questions about humanity, about where we've been and where we might be going, well, Sapiens is an amazing place to start. Thanks for exploring with us.